The subject is about Sayyidina Umar Ibn Al-Khattab. There's certain people, when you think about them, you kind of shiver just hearing their name because of who they were. If you look at all of the Sahaba, what separates Umar Ibn Al-Khattab from everybody else? He's in a unique category that no other Sahaba is in. None of them. The Seerah, when you study the Seerah, the first few years was very difficult until year 5. Year 5, they start pushing the Muslims, and you hear the story of Sumayya and Al Yasir, and then the first migration to Abyssinia happens in year 5. And because they want to find a place to take refuge. Then Sayyidina Hamza becomes Muslim, which is really a boost for the Muslims because he's a warrior, and he stands with the Prophet ﷺ. 6 days later, after the Shahada of Sayyidina Hamza, the Prophet ﷺ makes a dua after Fajr, and this dua is one of the most beautiful du'as. He says, Allahumma a'izz al-Islam bi-ahabbi hadayni rajulayni ilayka, bi-Abi Jahlin or bi-Umar ibn al-Khattab. So he says, Ya Allah, give izzah, give dignity to this religion with one of the two men, either Abu Jahl, which was Abu al-Hakam Amr, or Umar ibn al-Khattab. They were the two enemies of the Prophet ﷺ. And this is something that really people don't think about. They were the two greatest enemies of the Prophet ﷺ. And this day that the Prophet ﷺ makes this dua is the same day that Umar ibn Khattab is planning to kill the Prophet ﷺ. Same day. And he's coming to kill him that day. But yet the Prophet ﷺ is making dua for him. And the other one is Abu Jahl, but it's this seeing the potential that what if they become Muslim? And that is a vision that our Prophet ﷺ brought into this religion to see what Maulana Rumi said, Dar khar bibin gulra birun hamakas binad. See the rose and the thorn. Once it blooms, everybody sees it. To see the rose in the thorn, to see the potential. He saw Omar as an enemy, but he said, what if he becomes a friend? He saw Abu Jahl as an enemy. He said, what if he becomes a friend? So he made dua. He said, Ya Allah, whoever is more beloved to you, give izzah to Islam with the Islam of one of the two. Right? And then Allah accepted his dua. And that day, before the end of the day, Sayyidina Umar comes to kill the Prophet ﷺ. He said, I'm going to put an end to this. This is madness. 5 years of this, I can't handle it. Now, Nu'aym ibn Abdullah, who sees Sayyidina Umar going, Umar ibn Khattab at that time, he's not a Muslim. He said, where are you going? He goes, I'm going to kill the Prophet. He said, Umar ibn Khattab, one thing about him, he had no hypocrisy in him. Before Islam or after Islam. What you see is what you get. What you see is what you get. And it's a proof that even after Islam, when the Prophet ﷺ said to him, he said, Ya Rasulullah, I love you more than my wife, more than my kids, more than this, everything in the world. But I don't love you more than myself. Because he wasn't a hypocrite. It wasn't lip service. And the Prophet ﷺ told him that your iman is not perfected. It's not completed until you love me more than everything and even what's between your two sides. Love me more than yourself. And what Sayyidina Umar did, in that moment, he made the Prophet ﷺ more beloved than himself. In a moment. It's not a hypocrisy. You say, I love you more than myself. I love you more than myself right now. So Sayyidina Umar says, I'm going to go kill him. But Nu'aym ibn Abdullah, this is one of the areas when you're reading the seerah, this is one of the areas you should concentrate. The social intelligence of the Sahabas. How incredibly intelligent they were. So what does he do? He just wants to delay it so he can get the news to the Prophet ﷺ so they're ready to defend him. That's all he wants to do. He said, why don't you go check out your sister? She became Muslim and her husband became Muslim. Go check her out. Why don't you kill her first? My sister became Muslim and it's a bait. And he got it. It's like, you throw a bait and then you get the fish. He got Sayyidina Umar. He got very upset. So he goes this way and he runs to the Prophet ﷺ and he says, Umar is coming. But the Prophet ﷺ knows because he made the dua. He made the dua that day. He said, let him come. Let him come. And after that incident, he goes and he sits in front of the Prophet ﷺ and he takes his shahada. Can you just look at the seerah when you read it, inshallah, this Ramadan? Every Ramadan is good to read the seerah. Every Ramadan you should do the seerah. Look at two people in the seerah, Abu Jahl and Umar Ibn Al-Khattab. Look at the damage that Abu Jahl did. Look at the torture that he put the Muslims through. Look at what he did. And look at Umar Ibn Al-Khattab. One dua. The Prophet ﷺ wanted to turn his enemies into friends. And Umar Ibn Khattab, once he became Muslim, from that day on, he said, everyone who becomes Muslim, they get beaten up. He said, I want to get beaten up too. I'm not better than anybody else. So he says, how am I going to let people know that I became Muslim? And there was a man in Mecca that they said that he couldn't keep a secret. Like he could not keep a secret. If he told them a secret, they would go tell somebody. So Sayyidina Umar saw him. He said, come here. I got to tell you something. But can you promise don't tell anybody? He goes, what is it? He said, I became Muslim. And this man, Sayyidina Umar said, he walked. He couldn't even hold it until he got to the Kaaba. He started shouting, Umar became Muslim. Umar became Muslim. So everybody came and they started attacking him. The entire... because Sayyidina Umar is supposed to be the next leader of the Quraysh. So they're losing their top people now. They're intelligent people. And they beat him up. And he beats them. And they beat him. It's 1 against 100. And then Sayyidina Umar, he comes and he becomes the defender of Islam. And he says, we're not praying in the house anymore. We're praying in a mosque. And they go and they pray the first time in the Kaaba. And what happened when he makes migration to Medina? Everybody is at the nighttime before Fajr. Nobody should find out. We go and migrate. And he goes to the Kaaba and announces, he said, whoever wants their children to become orphans, their wives to become widows, come and stop me. I'm migrating tomorrow at this time. This is Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab. Amazing human being. But the justice of Sayyidina Umar. This is why Aristotle said all of the moral virtues are 4. You have adala, you have justice, you have shuja'ah, bravery, you have iffa, you have temperance, and you have hikmah, and you have wisdom. This is all of moral virtue is in these 4 categories. And this is Imam Ghazali and Farabi, every Muslim scholars, they all agreed in these 4 moral virtues. Sayyidina Umar is the just. Sayyidina Umar is the Adil. That's one of his name. When he became the Khalifa, his expansion was incredible. From Egypt to Persia, to Isfahan, to Kurdistan, to Jordan, to Jerusalem, everywhere. Sorry. No, it's fine, thank you. In that, it went everywhere. The expansion went everywhere. It's 10 years. It's no other human being has done what he has done with the army that he had. Right? In Qadisiyah, they had Rustam, the great, he was the Zeus of Iran. They had Rustam leading the army. In their army was 120,000 people versus 36,000 Muslims. And yet, look at the Muslims. Look at the strategy. So, but what he has done is the expansion and putting people in charge, but monitoring them and giving them clear instruction. One of the men from Bani Asad, he gave him a post to go lead one of the cities. And when he was going, he came to Sayyidina Umar's house to get a dua. And when he came in, Sayyidina Umar, one of his children, came and he hugged him and he kissed him. He said, "Oh, you kiss your children? Wallahi, I never kiss my children or hug them." And he said, "Astaghfirullah. Give me the paper I gave you." He takes the paper back from him. He said, "How could I entrust a village, a town, with a person who has no rahmah for his own children? How are you going to have rahmah for the people?" We need leaders that have rahmah. Even though his minhaj is justice, but that justice has to have rahmah in it. And look at the Amr ibn al-As. He is leading the entire Egypt. Egypt is not a country. Egypt is like an empire in that time. The Amr ibn al-As is the Khalifa of Egypt. His son, Muhammad ibn Amr ibn al-As, he is having there's a horse race. And he is having a horse, and then he thinks that his horse is leading. But his horse resembles another horse that belongs to a Christian Coptic of Egypt. We still have Coptic Christians in Egypt. And he starts shouting, "My horse won, my horse is winning." He starts shouting and shouting. And then he sees that it's a horse of the Christian Coptic. And then he gets upset. And he hits him. And humiliates him in front of people. Amr ibn al-As doesn't get the justice. He doesn't say, "You should slap my son for doing this, for humiliating you. I'm sorry." He puts him in prison. He said, "I don't want this thing to get out," or he go complain to the headquarters in Medina. So he's in prison for a few months. And after that, he releases him. So, "Oh, it's old news. He probably forgot about it." But this man didn't forget. He went to Medina. And he told Sayyidina Umar, "This is what happened to me." Sayyidina Umar sends a letter and calls both of them to Medina, Muhammad and Amr ibn al-As, and brings them and he says, "Tell me the story." He tells the story and they agree. Because he can't lie in front of Umar. And then he says to them, "Why did you do that? You were shouting to them that I am the son of the noble people. You're bragging about your lineage, that you're amongst the Ashraf. But justice wasn't served." So he gives the whip in the hand of the Coptic Christian. And he says, "Hit him. Hit him." He says, "Hit who?" And he says, "Adrib." This man who used to say, "Ibn al-Akramain, I am the son of these noble people." And he started hitting him. And he started hitting him. And he started hitting him. And then he says, "Hit his father too. Hit his father, Amr ibn al-As. If you want, hit his father because he didn't do justice." And the man says, "His father didn't hit me. He hit me and I got my reward." But there's something happens after this that he turns to Amr ibn al-As. This is one of the warriors of Islam, a companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he tells him something. He said, "Ya Amr." He said, "What happened? متى استبدعتم الناس وولدتهم أمهاتهم أحرارا." He says, how do you keep these people as slave and prisoner? استعبدتم. How do you keep them slave and prisoner as abd when their mothers gave them birth as free people? How do you do this? What's wrong with you? The justice of Sayyidina Umar. This, if you read the seerah, and Muhammad Haykal wrote a beautiful seerah, Shibli Numani wrote a beautiful seerah. There are many seerah of Sayyidina Umar, beautiful books that are out there. When he saw a Yahudi man begging one day, it was a Jewish man begging, and he said, "Why are you doing this?" He said, "My kids, they don't take care of me. I'm old, I can't work, so I'm begging." And he looked at his companion, he said, "This is not fair. When this man was young, he used to work and give us jizya, give us taxes. Now he's old, he can't work, and now he has to beg?" He said, "Wallahi, this is not fair. we have to give them from Baitul Mal. So he started the first social security in the history of humanity. Old people who can't work, give them from Baitul Mal, from Central Bank of the Muslims, give them monthly salary. He established it for all of the old people, and they were, most of them were non-Muslims, because the Muslims, their children would take care of them. This is Sayyidina Umar Ibn al-Khattab. There was one of his caliphs was in Ahwaz in Iran, in Persia. And he, because the weather would be very hot in the summer, he would go to this high place where it was nice and cool. And then people had to go all the way up there to just get a paper sign and get something from him as a Khalifa of the state. He heard about it, that people were complaining. It's so hard to get a hold of him. He sent him a letter. He said, go back to Ahwaz. Go back to where the people are. Why are you getting a place in this place where people, you're putting trials and tribulation on the Ra'iyah, on your citizens. Make it easy for them. Go back. Go back to where you were, with the people. And throughout the seerah of Sayyidina Umar, you would see that his worldview is just completely amazing. When he took the Khilafah, the second khutbah that he gave, every day he would come and give a talk, first day, and then the second day he came and gave a talk. And this is like historic. And it shows the social intelligence of Sayyidina Umar. He said to them, he said, we're Arabs. And one thing about the Arabs, that when we have wars, we keep the women and children. This was part of the war in Arabian Peninsula. If they defeated the army, they would keep the women and children as captive. And we know the story of Zayd ibn Haritha, who became the servant of Bibi Khadija, that he was sold in Ukkaz because he was just, that the town was raided by these people and there was a war, and then they just kidnapped him as a young boy and they sold him in slavery. But he ended up to a cousin of Bibi Khadija, give a gift to Bibi Khadija, give a gift to the Prophet ﷺ, and then he became Zayd ibn Haritha, the great Sahabi, right? But this was normal, and they would keep them. He said, today I say we release all children and all the women and take them, send them back to their homes, to their town, to their village, and to their tribes. Because he's the Khalifa, everybody had to obey that. Now, what that action did, which was incredible, that when they were going to these battles, that they needed 30,000 people, 20,000 people for the army, everyone was united. All of the Arabian Peninsula, every tribe that became Muslim, they were all united. Because, hey, you know what, look at, they give our children back. They give our women back. This one act united the entire Arabian Peninsula. All of them. And this is really but the most important thing was about, when I was reading the seerah of Sayyidina Umar, was when they conquered Iran, Persia. See, Khosrau Yazid-Gird, who was the Khalif, who was the king of Persia, he was captured, he was sent to Medina, and they had 1.3 billion gold coins at his castle. I mean, talk about just this excessive wealth. But it was an empire, the Persian Empire, in silver. They had this carpet called the Baharistan, which is the autumn, right? The season of autumn. And the carpet covered the entire castle when people entered, and it was like a waterfall and trees, and the designs were incredible. That they say some people they would walk on it, they will lift their shirts. They think they were actually walking on water. That's how incredible this carpet was. And all around it was jewels embedded into the carpet, expensive jewels. They said it was the most expensive piece of anything on the planet in that time. So they brought that carpet, they sent that carpet to Medina. When the caravan came to Medina Munawwara, Sayyidina Umar is standing there. The front of the caravan reached Medina. The end of the caravan they couldn't see. That's how much gold and silver and jewelry and wealth came from Persia, from the castle of Khosrow. What did Sayyidina Umar do? This? What would you do as a leader? People would celebrate. We conquered Persia. We got the wealth. He started crying. He started crying. He said, Ya Allah, I wish you would have sent this at the time of Abu Bakr. He could have handled this. Ya Allah, why didn't you send this at the time of the Prophet ﷺ? He's the best of creation. Is this a test for Omar? Am I going to pass this test? All these wealth is coming? And then they brought it. They distributed the wealth amongst the people of Medina. They gave it to the central bank. And then the carpet. Unanimously, everybody said the carpet should go to Khalifa. It should go to Khalifa. He said, I don't need this carpet. I don't want this carpet. And then Sayyidina Ali said, let's cut it into pieces. So they cut it into small pieces and they give everybody a piece. And Sayyidina Ali sold his for 20,000 dirham. Just a small piece. This was incredible wealth coming to Medina Munawwara from Persia. But that wealth, he was afraid that they might bring fitna with it. And usually wealth brings fitna with it. Sayyidina Umar was worried about that. But then, here is one of the miracle of Sayyidina Umar. When Sariya, he was sent, he was one of the leaders. Sariya went to Ibn Zunaym. He went to Persia and he was fighting. But in the battle, he didn't know that they were getting counterattacked from the other side. So Sayyidina Umar was giving a khutbah in Medina. In the middle of the khutbah, he shouts, Ya Sariyatul Jabal. O Sariya, to the mountain. To the mountain. He repeats it 3 times. Everybody's wondering, what is he talking about in the middle of the khutbah? And then when Sariya came back, he said, Oh Umar, I heard your voice. And we went to the mountain. Had we not gone to the mountain, we would have been all slaughtered. Some people say, how is it possible then someone shouts from Medina, another person can hear it in Persia? So you think that AT&T can do it with your phone and God can't do it? These phones, you can call right now Persia and they'll pick it up. Call anywhere in the world. They'll pick it up, you can talk and your voice goes there. And yet Allah can't do that? That's one of the miracles of Sayyidina Umar. But what's fascinating about him is his conquest of Jerusalem. Jerusalem was surrounded for months. They had nowhere to go, they had nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. And then they send a person to say, we want to do a peace treaty. We don't want to fight, we want to do a peace treaty. And Sayyidina Umar accepted. You know why he said accepted it? He said, this is the city that our Prophet ﷺ went on the Isra and Miraj. This is a muqaddas. This is a place of sacredness. I don't want to fight here. I don't want war here. I want peace. Even though they could just walk in and take over. So they write this treaty, and the bishop, he's Sophronius, or there's Sophronius, whatever way you pronounce it. He is the bishop, the patriarch bishop of Jerusalem at that time, in the Church of Holy Sepulchre. He says, write a peace treaty for us. If you read that peace treaty now, you will like, why are we doing all this? Why are we doing all this for them? We defeated them. They have nowhere to go. They're fallen. Why? But Sayyidina Umar, look at his leadership. Look, he is trying, he is winning hearts. This is why people became Muslim. This is the reason why people became Muslim. Seeing akhlaq, seeing character. And in the treaty he says that the Muslims will protect the churches. The Muslim will protect the cross. The Muslim will not allow anyone to destroy a church or to damage it. The Muslim will not allow anyone to confiscate any endowment of the church. They will not allow anyone to move into a church. And it keeps going and going and going. Everything that they couldn't believe that it's written by. If they would have written this, they couldn't write it as beautiful and as generous as Sayyidina Umar had it written. And then the protection of your endowment, the protection of your people, all of that. Then they just pay jizya. Because the non-Muslim, they don't have to pay zakat. They don't have zakat. But they pay a jizya. We pay zakat as Muslim, right? Because you pay 2.5% of your wealth. In that time, the government used to collect it. And then when the wealth became so much, then they said, go ahead and you give it yourself to whoever you want. But at the beginning, time of the Prophet ﷺ, time of Sayyidina Abu Bakr, they used to go and collect the zakat and bring it into the Bayt al-Mal. So he goes and the other thing they put in this treaty is that none of you have to become Muslim. La ikrah fi din. There is no compulsion in religion. You don't have to become Muslim. And those who want to stay, they're welcome to stay. Those who want to leave, we will escort you so you can get to a safe zone, because there are places that there are fighting happening. If you want to go back to Rome, if you want to go back to your place, because there was a lot of immigrants in there in Jerusalem, we will escort you, the Muslim, so you safely cross to a safe zone, then you can go to your land. This is the treaty of Sayyidina Umar Ibn Al-Khattab. And this is for who? For Christians. And then the bishop says, let me give you a tour of Jerusalem, because there's a lot of sacred places. So he goes through it and he shows all these places. And he goes to the Church of Holy Sepulchre. And he goes inside of it. And then it's time for Dhuhr prayer. And he says, pray here. Sayyidina Umar says, no, I won't pray here out of the honor of your church. He said, if I pray in here, at one point some Muslim will say, Umar prayed his first prayer in this church, we're going to turn it into a mosque. And that's exactly what happened. He said, I'm going to pray outside. So he went outside, he prayed in a place, there's a mosque of Sayyidina Umar still there. Did they build a mosque? That this is where Sayyidina Umar had his first prayer established. And I'll end with this story of justice of Sayyidina Umar. When the Prophet ﷺ was migrating to Medina, there was 100 camels for the bounty hunters. If you catch him, 100 camels. Suraq ibn Malik, they say he could find somebody on the ground when he looked up in the skies, because he would see by the birds where there are people. And he found them. When he got close, his horse will go into the sand. He said, this is not normal. He would go into the sand. It's not normal. And then he saw the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr Siddiq. And the Prophet ﷺ turned around and he said, stop. And he said, what did they promise you if you catch me? He said, 100 camels. And the Prophet ﷺ said, this is hope. This is hope. And if you look at the seerah, the Prophet ﷺ at the worst time, he always gave hope. And he said to him, 100 camels, Suraqa? How would you like to wear the bracelets of Kisra, the king of Persia? And he said, write something for me for this meeting. So Sayyidina Abu Bakr get a piece of bone, and he writes something on it, and he throws it. When the caravan came from Persia, and Sayyidina Umar was distributing it, they took out the bracelet of Kisra, and he took out the bone, and he said, your prophet promised me that I would wear it. And he told him the story, and he brought in the signature of Sayyidina Abu Bakr. And Sayyidina Umar said, put it on him. And they put the bracelet of Kisra on the hand of Suraq ibn Malik. And everybody said, Takbir. And they all said, Allahu Akbar. Allah, they were all so happy that it's the prophecy of the Prophet comes true. And then Sayyidina Umar said, take it off. Take it off, give it back to Baytul Mal. He said, why? He said, the Prophet said, you will wear it. He didn't say you can have it. Justice in intelligence. That's Umar Ibn Al-Khattab radiallahu anh in brief. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد طب القلوب ودواهها وعافية الأبدان وشفائها ونور الأبصار وضياهها وقوت الأرواح وغذائها وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. جزاك الله خيرا.